In this lesson, we'll cover duct systems. So you may ask, well, what is a duct system? What does a duct system contain? Well, a duct system contains all of the elements within that physical system. So it could be the component that supplies the air to the actual system. It could be the actual diffusers or terminals at the end of the system that the air comes out of. And it could be anything in between these elements. So the actual duct work, duct accessories, and duct fittings. So before you actually start to create all of these elements, you really need to define or should define a duct system. But first, you want to place a few components to base the duct system on. So in this example here, I've already placed 5 elements we'll use in this duct system. 4 things I've created are the air terminals, the diffusers for which the air will come out of. The yellow box at the top is the actual mechanical equipment that supplies the air to these diffusers. So these 5 elements I want to add to my duct system before I start to create duct lines and duct accessories and actual other duct elements. So to get started with this, the first thing you would do is create your actual starting point of some duct components. Once you have a few duct components placed, you can create the duct system. That step process would be to first click one of these elements. So I'm going to start where the air would be supplied at and choose the actual mechanical equipment supplying the air. When you select this, you'll actually see on the right side of the ribbon a Create Systems panel. Now, depending on what you select, it will tell you what type of systems you can create based on its capabilities. So this mechanical piece of equipment has the ability to have a duct system and a piping system. For this example here, we're going to choose duct to create a duct system. So go ahead and select duct. Now I'm presented with a new screen. It's telling me or asking me, well, what type of system? Supply air or return air? Well, I'm going to define a supply air system. And now give the system a name. I'm going to choose just the default name here, Mechanical Supply Air 32. Or it could be whatever you want to name it. Now the system editor that I can check mark in the checkbox below would allow me to add things or components to this system. I'm not going to check mark it right now because I'm going to launch this editor from an icon on the toolbar. Just go ahead and click OK. Now what happens now is the system is created, System 32, within Revit, and I can see that in my system browser if I went to my system browser at this point. But only one component, that one we first selected, is part of this system. I need to add these other 4 terminals or diffusers to this system. So with the actual original component still highlighted, if it's not, just click it again, and then you'll see the actual System Tools area on the right. I'm going to click Edit System. This will open up a new part of the ribbon allowing me to add or remove elements to this system. Well, I want to add things to this system. So what's currently in this system is emphasized in bold or outlined in black, hence the one unit in yellow. The Add System button is selected on the ribbon. Now all I have to do is pick elements that currently do not belong to this system. For example, the 4 terminals, the diffusers. So just go ahead and select all 4 by left-clicking on them. They'll then be added to this system, and I see a total number of elements within this system. You also could select from a drop-down if you wanted to pick other elements to add to this system, such as mechanical equipment. In this case, I'm just picking the 4 diffusers. You could also use Select Equipment from the actual ribbon. Now, once you're done adding elements, in this case components to the system, just click Finish Editing System. Now I have this new system defined with 5 elements in the system. To see this in the system browser, let's go to the View tab on the ribbon, all the way to the right to the user interface, and then checkmark System Browser. In the system browser, you can expand Mechanical to look at the mechanical system, and then since we tagged this as a Supply Air system, expand Supply Air. Scroll down to where I see System 32 for Supply Air. When you select it, it should window in all the components within this system. If I expand that inside of the browser on the right, I see all 4 of the diffusers that I selected, plus the actual supply component, the yellow box, if you will, supplying the air to these diffusers. To deselect, simply just click anywhere in the background to deselect any elements you currently have highlighted. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at how to create duct systems. We first off talked about what is a duct system and what does a duct system contain. Basically all of those elements, starting with what supplies the air to what diffuses the air and everything in between. We then talked about first creating a component or a few components inside of your Revit model and using one of those as the basis to create a system. You then create the system, name it appropriately, and add the other components to that system. From there, you can view this information in the system browser, and then you can start to route your actual HVAC lines either manually or automatically within the system itself.